Hi folks, my name is Tom Amini-Karazi, a Regional Vice President out of Southern California, and today what we're going to cover is the basics of investing. A very simple brochure and simple approach of going back to the basics and building really a fundamental value in our investment approach. One of the most important things that we want to make sure that we cover is with the economy and what's going on out there. There's pensions disappearing, people that are overloaded with debt, making wrong financial advice, or getting the wrong financial advice, having the wrong financial habits. We need to go back to the basics. This brochure, I've been doing this presentation for over 20 years, and I have clients from truck drivers making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year, and I have actually over 57 different doctors, some of them over $500,000 a year in income. So this brochure applies to all types of individuals. It's just customized with the numbers. And you have to understand that most of us do not have the basics down. We act like we do. We talk about our diversification, but the basic fundamental habits is really the issue here. And if you look at what's going on is we've been taught the wrong financial habits. That's why we're in this kind of situation. So this really brings a conversation piece and really builds that value across the kitchen table. Now, a little bit about the brochure. We'll get into it right now. The basics of investing. And the first page you're going to go to is you're going to set up the stage and talk about what's happening out there. Look, most American families right now are in a debt cycle versus a cash cycle. And debt cycle is it's automatic. We get into debt just naturally right now. You're not in control of your finances. If you look at outspending your income, constantly borrowing for your lifestyle. And so what happens in this situation is you're always behind the 8 ball. You're never getting ahead. So in order to get in front of the 8 ball, we need to get into a cash cycle habit. Very few in this country are in a cash cycle habit. And cash cycle habit is you're debt-free. You're buying things cash. You're in control of your finances. So now you're proactive. You're controlling where your finances are going. And if you look at the overall picture of all the threats to your financial situation, none is more dangerous than debt. And that's the reason why we're not maxing out our retirement accounts. We're not putting away towards our investments, our college plans for our kids, is because debt is overloading our financial situation. So the solution to that problem is very simple. Step one, pay yourself first. Get into the cash cycle habit. We're going to talk about the 3 fundamental accounts, but also hand in hand with that, step 2 is set up a debt elimination program. Start stacking your debt to eliminate it. They say, psychologists say that, most of these diet fads that are going out there, that people get on them, and by the time they get off of them, sometimes they're worse than before they got on them, because they never replaced a bad habit with a good one. Finances work the same way. You have to understand that if you're going to eliminate debt, you need to start replacing that with a habit of paying yourself first and investing. So, step 1 is the 3 fundamental accounts. And what this did in the early days when I first started the business, this made it very simple. Now, in order for this to work, I personally got on the plan myself. And you guys got to understand that wounded healers make it the best in this business. I came in, I was looking for a financial education. I came from an engineering background. I didn't know nothing about finances. And when I tuned in on this concept, it changed my life. And your presentations are going to be much more powerful when you're modeling this and not preaching it. You have to remember that. So first client is yourself. And your example naturally comes across in this presentation. So 3 fundamental accounts. Let's go through them. Pay yourself first. First account is an emergency account. Emergency account is usually built up to 3 months. Now, not overnight you're going to build it up to 3 months income you're putting away, but small baby steps to start developing to get to that point. And what you're going to use it for is emergencies, vacations, or any purchases 0 to 2 years. Now, I'll give you a quick example of this. I had a client of mine call me, and she says, we don't want to throw off our plan, and we don't want to get back into debt. What do we do? I said, well, let me look at your account. And in her emergency account, she had $5,000. I said, well, what's the emergency? She says, well, we need $3,000 right now for our van because the transmission went out and we don't want to use our credit card again. I said, well, let's pull it out of your emergency account. She said, okay, well then how much do I pay back? I said, you don't. We had her on an automatic $250 a month. I said, so in the next few months, that's going to build back up. That's how you pay yourself first. She goes, okay, I got it. That broke the debt cycle. So that's what the emergency account's used for. Then we back it up with a short-term account, which is up to 6 months income is the goal to build up into that. And that's for unforeseen events, for example, like loss of job or disability. Also for short-term purchases. Majority of our clients, when we sit down with them, our goal is to get them to buy their cars cash. When I buy my cars cash, it comes right out of my short-term account. I pay myself back, build that up the next 4 or 5 years, and then go buy another car. That's basically self-financing. That's when you're in control of the purchase because you have that money put aside, so that puts you in front of the 8 ball, not behind it. And then we back that up with the wealth building account. Wealth building account is retirement accounts like IRAs, traditional IRAs, 401ks, anything that they're putting away for retirement. So when we break it down this way, this is just baby steps in developing that right habit of the cash cycle. And now, how do we calculate out, how that's done? This is very important that you understand this, is you want to get a proper monthly commitment to pay themselves first. And the conversation that I have, and I'll role play this with you real quick, and I teach this to all my agents, is a very simple concept. So look, majority of our clients, and I pull a legal pad out, majority of our clients put away about 10% of their income. We got a fortunate few, about 15%. Those are limited to fixed budget, about 5%. Mr. and Mrs. Client, which one of these would you be comfortable with? So if it's $4,000, 10% of that is $400, so you write it right out. $200, 5%, $600 is 15%, and then they pick out, and usually 80% of the time they're picking out the $400, the middle 10% of their income. Now that $400, the most important thing is to get a commitment 3 or 4 times to make sure you have a live commitment, something that's real that they're going to commit to. Say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I need to make sure that this amount that you're going to commit to yourself of paying yourself first is comfortable. If we need to adjust it, let's adjust it right now. So $400 is comfortable. We go right back to the brochure. That $400 a month commitment that we just got from them, you want to break it down. $200 a month, you want to put in an emergency account, that's the 50%. 25% goes in the short term, that's $100 a month, and then 25% goes into the wealth building account, which is another $100. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Client, now we have your commitment and broken down where it needs to be invested. Let's talk about the investment options. Emergency account, that's a money market. Money market, the reason why we pick a money market, it needs to be there when you need it. Emergencies happen when they happen. So that's why we use a money market account. Short-term account, short-term funds, we use basically a conservative allocation. It needs to be conservative because it's more short-term. Then the wealth building, which is your retirement type of accounts, we need to use a wealth building concept. So let's go back and we pull out our legal pad and actually go through this. Say you want to retire at age 60, for example. Well, here's what you want to look at. At age 60, up to that point, your focus is to get your money to grow. So you're in your growth phase of your life. So you need to use growth funds in this phase of your life. Then after retirement, your focus is income. So in your income years, so you need to use income funds for this phase of your life. So if you have income funds in your growth phase and growth in your income phase, you see where there's a problem. We need to organize that and put that towards your objective, which is, number 1, growth years, retirement, then focus on the income years. Now, what we use for those type of investments is mutual funds. And whether you know about them or not, I'm just going to touch on them a little bit. And we left this page in here. So it's a very simple way of explaining how mutual funds work. So what is a mutual fund? A mutual fund is a group of investors like you and I pooling our money together and then having a professional money manager invest into the economy. That's the basic concept of a mutual fund. Now, the most important way to invest into mutual funds is dollar cost averaging. And that's the most important page that we cover with all our clients. You have to make sure you understand that the reason why we put this in the brochure is that in times of fear, when the market's going up and down, fear is replaced with proper education. I've had clients call me before, and I have them go back to their notes, and they have the dollar cost averaging page, and their emotions are pretty much settled because they see that this is value time. So let me give you a quick example how we cover the dollar cost averaging page. Basically, it's systematic investing. Mr. and Mrs. Client, you have two options to invest your money. You have $100 a month for the next 6 months, and you can either put it into a rising market where the price goes up every month, or a fluctuating market where it starts at 10, next few months it goes down to 2, but then it comes right back up to 10. Now you think you didn't make much because it's $10 when it started and $10 when at the end of that period of time. That's not true. If you look at the breakdown, let's look at this. In the rising market, that $100 a month, because it was getting more and more expensive, it bought you less and less shares. So you ended up with 42 shares at the end of that time. In the fluctuating market, when the price went down, you bought more shares. So at the end of that time, you ended up with 126 shares. So if we calculate this out, $20 a month, or $20 a share, excuse me, times 42 shares is $840. $10 a share times 126 shares is $1,260. Can you see where a fluctuating market gives you the chance with dollar cost averaging to get more value for your money? That's the concept we teach. So when the time comes every month and you're systematic investing and the market's fluctuating, just remember dollar cost averaging brings you more value. Now that's the investment approach. Now that was step one. Step two, and this is the most important part, is we need to start setting up a debt stacking or a debt elimination program. You have to understand that most people don't max out their retirement, don't have a fun time with their finances, is because debt is overloading their situation. So step one was getting into a cash cycle habit, 3 fundamental accounts. Step two is stacking your debt. So if we go through this debt stacking program, as we're starting to build up your 3 fundamental accounts, we're going to start stacking your debt. How does that work? Very simple. This is an example of an individual has a retail card, a credit card, another credit card, a car loan, mortgage. You can see they're paying $27.20 a month in payments, and just making those minimum payments over that period of time, it's going to take them 24 years and 3 months to pay off all that debt. They're going to pay over $214,000 in interest, and that $27.20 a month is actually a habit over that 24-year period of time. Now, setting up a debt stacking program, look at the difference. We got them in a habit of putting into their emergency fund so they stop using their credit cards. So once that retail card was paid off, that minimum payment on the retail card, we applied that amount towards the next debt. Once that was paid off, we applied it towards the next debt. And once that car was paid off, we applied it towards the next credit card, and then eventually to the mortgage. You notice they didn't pay a dime extra out of their pocket, but they stacked their debt. What's the result? Result is you're in a position where you're 9 years and 1 month paid off completely, 182 months sooner, and you've saved $130,000, over $130,000 in interest. So you only paid over $83,789 and same exact dollar amount. At this point, when you have $27.20 freed up, you can put that towards investing and back into your lifestyle. That's a tremendous difference versus the other way. The bad habit was to have that payment for the next 24 years. So you can see the power of stacking debt and getting completely debt-free. And at this point, we just basically roll right into our closing question. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you can see the value in getting out of the debt cycle into the cash cycle. So the only question we really have to answer tonight is how soon you want to get started towards the cash cycle and developing the right habits. And we go right into that close. And it works every time. And you guys have to understand that this brochure it gives you the flexibility of going back and forth to different examples. For example, if you guys see the wealth building, we had a client, we were referred to the father, and we sat down with the father and went through the wealth building concept, and I took a look at his accounts that he handed over, the statements, and the problem was in his situation is he was retired, and he had a bunch of high aggressive funds, international, global, different types of small cap and mid cap funds, and he was very upset. That's why he had us come over there and said, see, going back to this picture, can you see a problem with this scenario? You're in your income years and you have high risk funds inside your portfolio. And when we sat down with him, we actually cleaned that up. We also sat down with his son. His son had the opposite effect. And because we were able to show him on this page, they could see that, yes, you're right. In my growth years, I should be focused on growth. In my income years, I should be focused on income. So it simplifies the process and builds that confidence. This gives you, or the new recruit that's covering this with a client, the confidence to stick to fundamentals and be very upfront with them about the approach. And I'm telling you folks, if you commit to the 3 fundamental accounts, it'll keep your life simple, it'll keep a confident voice in what you're doing, and you personally use it. In short-term account, I've had numerous of clients just recently, this last June, one of my police officers that's part-time with us, in the last 4 or 5 years, he's been building up his short-term account. He's a river rat, so he loves going to the river. He bought his boat cash out of his short-term account. Now he's paying himself back the payment. There's countless, and I mean countless of examples of using this to where it gives you the ability to be in control of your finances instead of it controlling you.